Hey everybody, this is Principal JL. I'm actually going live today. I was wanting to try this live stream out, and so I wanted to see what you guys' thoughts are. But also, I wanted to talk to you about some things that I am um, doing currently as a principal, just to give you some backstory. I'm in my third year in a principal at the building I'm at right now, and I think one of the things that we worked through over the last 2.5 years to 3 years now is attendance. And so we looked at a lot of different things, and really we kind of stumbled upon something. Really, was my assistant principal at an administrative conference and my superintendent. They saw the same basically breakout session, and they brought it to me, and they're like, "Hey, this might be our answer." So we took it to our school improvement team, and we started working on, okay, what does this look like at our school? Could we take what this school was doing and implement it, how it looked, and make it basically our own? So basically, on top of that, I also finished my EDS, my educational specialist in K-12 leadership. And so at the time, I was looking at this chronic absenteeism and how to make it, how to get it better in your school. And being a building principal, it's kind of awesome to see how everybody worked together to kind of get to where we are today. And so today I kind of wanted to share you guys the why. Um, we made an attendance policy change, kind of some research behind it, but also how it's going as well, because the results that I'm looking at are very positive, and I'm not sure how it's going to translate throughout the rest of the year, but I think we are trending in the right direction when it comes to chronic absenteeism and making the attendance in our building better. And to give you some background on that, we just believe that when kids are in school, they learn better. Yes, you can go online and learn online and do all that stuff, but actually being a part of an online or a in-school education where you have your teachers, your classmates, and everybody within the building collaborating together, you just get a more solid education. But there's also that sense of belonging that kids get when they're in a building setting than they do when they're sitting at home trying to do it online. Not to say that's bad, just saying it's not as good as in-person learning. So we really believe that, and we really wanted to take back what the essence of schooling is, and really come down to having an accountability piece for attendance, not just for ourselves, but for everybody involved. So I'm going to go ahead and share you guys the uh, PowerPoint that I put together for my capstone class to kind of give you some background on kind of what we're working through. So we're looking here at the multi-tier system for to reduce chronic absenteeism, and so basically we were trying to figure out, it's not known how to reduce the chronic absenteeism of students at a high school in South Central Nebraska. That's where I currently live. I'm not going to name the school by name, but there we are. So some of our data showed chronic absenteeism rates to be very high. Just to let you guys know, we're about 64, 65% free and reduced chronic absenteeism rate. Um, or we're not free and reduced. We are 65% free and reduced population. So we were dealing with a lot of social economic students in our building, and so we kind of saw this as a, hey, this is a problem. How do we fix that? So what is chronic absenteeism in Nebraska? It defines chronic absenteeism to missing 10% of a child's time at membership. It counts for all the absences, excused and unexcused, and suspensions and all that. So it puts it all together. So if a kid shows up for a 180-day school year and they miss more than 18 days, they'll be considered chronic absenteeism. If a kid shows up for 80 days, they miss more than 8, and they're chronically absent. So that kind of gives you an idea of, depends on the enrollment while they're in school. So knowing that, we call, what are some things we got to think about? Here's some possible solutions when it comes to it. There's the positive school culture aspect. Positive perceptions of school climate are associated with lower chronic absenteeism rates. So, how do you create a positive school culture? The implication of this, intervention support. So, we have a PBAS system in place, but we also wanted to utilize that with transformational leadership. That's kind of leadership style that I'm going with on this is how do I empower other people to help the change. And of course, we talked about a multi-tiered support for chronic absenteeism. So we developed a multi-dimensional tiered support system, which I'll show later. But this is all backed by research. These are things that you could possibly do to help reduce chronic absenteeism in your schools. When it comes down to it, there's some things that could hinder the implementation of this. So if you don't have a positive culture, that's going to hinder it. If your leadership is direct or authoritarian, if you're just bossing people around, it's not going to work very well because you need a collaborative environment. Not having a PBS system and process, something to deal with positive behavior supports. So those are things that are important. Teacher staff members not being committed to the process, uh, people not understanding the process. Does the principal work collaboratively with other members? Does everybody work collaboratively together? Do they value the MTSS process and the validity of the process? So this is kind of where we're at, um, with some things that could hinder the process of a chronic absenteeism. So our attendance policy basically here states that, school is important. Being in school is the best way to learn. And so if you don't come to school, there's going to be some consequences. Of course, we know it's legal. We know it's a legal thing. You need to be in school until your age of 18 here in Nebraska. I think you have to be 19 if you want to drop out, but that's another ball of wax. But we're looking at it as unexcused absences per period, per class, per semester. So if you miss 8 or more periods, uh, per class, so if you miss one class 8 times, you can lose half credit, and the reason why we do half credit is because, if we lose full credit, then where are you gonna have the kid go? We're in a school that we have a lot, about 1,000 students, so we can't just be shipping kids out of classes once they, lose credit, so we go to half credit, and so what we do is with that half credit loss, there's an actually appeals process that they can work through to try to gain that full credit back. So we actually have a tiered system in place, which I'll show later on that. I'm just giving you an overview. There are some special circumstances. Now, these must be pre-planned. They have to hold some sort of unique educational opportunity for the kids. These are things that we take case by case. Uh, a parent or a student wants to submit what special circumstances. They submit it to their assistant principal. They bring it to the attendance committee. We look at it and we make a decision. Yes, this will count as a special circumstances or no. And then we give them, feedback and why. And yes, it is or isn't. And so we kind of look at these unexcused absences as kind of like um, days you take off from work, right? So you can take up to 8 days off from work before you get penalized or before you lose something. So that's kind of the same process here with the attendance policy. But we have supports before we get to that 8, so we're trying to keep people from, becoming truant and things like that. When it comes down to it, there's an appeals process. They get an appeals packet that goes out with the 8-day letter, and I'll give you guys an example of what those 8-day letters look like. But at the same time, um, the process is something that they have to go through, and they need to, submit that paperwork, and it goes by per class. So you can get more than one of these appeals if you get one class 1 week or 2 weeks later, you can get another class. A lot of times these classes kind of bunch up together with that. So that's kind of the appeals process. So we have this a layered support system, and so that's kind of where we're at with that. So what does this tier system look like? So I'm going to go ahead and open up what that MTSS tier support system looks like. So if you really look in here, we have 3 levels. So the first level here is the tier 1 that is missing less than 4 days of class. And so with that level, we have an attendance coordinator. We call it our paper route. They go around and go, "Hey, we missed you yesterday. What can we do to help to make sure you're in school?" And so we really work with that child to help them understand, being in school is important. We miss them. We want them here. And then if there's something that we can do to help them provide support, that's what we're there for. So that's our tier level 1 system, is where we have our attendance coordinator really reach out and make those connections with those kids. Our tier 2 is more targeted, where we're looking at anybody between 4 to 7 unexcused absences. So this is where they start getting on the radar. We have a community liaison in our building that will connect with these families and try to help them remove barriers and what can we do to help them. So looking at all the different resources within the community and their school to help those families make sure they get a plan so their child is in school and they are where they need to be. And this kind of gives us the tip off to our other our our third. We kind of monitor these things week by week. So we have some different supports there that are targeted. If you get down here to tier 3, that's more intensive. That's when we start referring people to our STARS program. Our STARS program here is a program that is by the county here in our community. And so they work closely with the county attorney and they make recommendations for filing for truancy based off the things that they try to do with the family. So what we're trying to do and when we hit tier 3 is, "Hey, you've missed 8 or more days of class in a certain period. We really need you to really, show up to school, do the right things, and how can we help you do that?" And when we get to that part, um, that's where we bring in our community, STARS person what kinda works and they call families, they give us reports how things are going on. And sometimes, families are just not willing to work, so they get referred up to the county attorney for truancy, and we're truly trying really hard to keep from going to truancy mode, but we do go to truancy a lot of times. And so what we've figured out is within the last first semester here we're almost done with the first semester. Um, but what I do is I look at our daily average attendance rate because the daily average attendance rate actually has a direct correlation with our chronic absenteeism. And so if we looked at our chronic absenteeism or our daily average attendance rate, um, the current daily average attendance rate is actually up compared to where we were the exact time last year. So basically went through the whole process. We um, communicated our new attendance policy. People are understanding it. Of course, we fielded calls and made sure people understood it better. My assistant principals have done a great job of really staying on top of where we are in the process with every kid, and that's not easy to do. But they've done a nice job with that. So we have seen some data that shows that this is working. So if we looked at our data the exact same time a year ago, our daily average attendance rate was around 86%. Um, 86% was our daily average attendance rate a year ago at this time. Right now, we are at 89.62% after a semester of implementing this new attendance policy. What that's telling me is we're up over 3% of a daily average attendance for the exact same amount of schooling, yeah, at the exact same time from a year ago. This trend has actually increased. So it's actually a smaller gap at the beginning, but then as the semester has gone on, our daily average attendance rate actually has kind of stayed steady. And then because of last year kept dropping and dropping, this year it's staying steady, which that's where we're getting our gap and being over 3% higher in our daily average attendance rate. Now, I'm not going to know exactly how it impacts the chronic absenteeism until the end of the year. But right now, we are getting less people being submitted for truancy. We have less papers going out for those type of things, which is a positive sign. Talking with my staff, they feel like kids are in school more often. They know they have less kids missing from class, which we actually have kids that, that were sitting on the fence going, "Hey, I don't really have to go to class because as long as I'm passing, I'm passing." So here's a story. We had a student that was told by their sibling, "Hey, you don't need to go to class. As long as you pass your class, you're gonna get the credit." Well, with this new attendance policy, because we require kids to be in class to receive credit, that has basically blown up that narrative to where now you have to be in class to receive the credit. You can't just skip and pass all your classes because you just didn't show up and you can get all the grades. Now it's like you have to show up, be present to get those credits as well. So this student talked about how they missed 46 days of school last year and still passed all their classes. Well, now they've only missed maybe 1 day this semester because they know if they miss too much school that they are going to actually not be able to get the credit. So that has been a really good deterrent for some of those kids. Now, does it work for everybody? No, we're going to still have our chronic absenteeism kids, but our biggest goal was to try to get the kids off the fence and into class and into school. And so that's kind of where we're at with it right now. And so that's our tier system. And like I said, we actually send out letters, and I'm going to give you an example what those letters are. So this is our 4-day letter. This is just a have our little school logo up here. But this is basically what it says. Hey, your kid's been gone this many days for this class. These are things you need to do to clear up those absences. And then at the bottom, we'll actually run a report to where it shows them exactly what classes they missed and which ones they need to make up on. So that's just kind of a example of what that letter would look like. That's what our letter looks like, but that's an example of what a letter would look like. And then coming back to it, we have an 8-day letter as well. And this 8-day letter basically shows, hey, you've missed more than 8 days in this class. These are the classes. Here's the appeals packet. And the appeals packet is basically a step by step procedure that they go through. They submit it back to their assistant principals. The assistant principals gets with those staff members and say, okay, this is the kid's situation. They actually have to write a letter of clarity of why they're missing. What can what's the circumstances that are keeping them from school, and then we make a determination on can we create an education plan for that child so they can receive full credit? And I'm telling you, our staff does a really good job of working with these kids, and I don't think we've denied one appeal yet. But I would say most of the time we have denied some opportunities. But a lot of the kids that the parents that know, like, hey, there's no good excuse. They don't even fill out the appeals packet, but we encourage them to because we want to try to help everybody. But before they get up to here, we had all these levels of interventions before we even get to the appeals packet part. And so that's the really great part about this. So just coming back around full circle, this is just one way that we're trying to battle the chronic absenteeism and to increase daily average attendance in our building. I know it may not be working for everybody, but at the same time, it's definitely something that's worked for us and that we need to continue on with what we got. And so basically, the data that we're showing is very positive. It's going in the right direction. I'm telling you, we are sending out less unexcused robocalls than we were last year at this time. At this time, that number was really jumping. And so just seeing those things come to fruition has been really fun and really awesome to see. So when it comes down to it, it takes a collaborative effort. Like I can't do what I do as a building principal by myself. I have everybody underneath me, everybody that works together, collaborating to make this. And then also have great leadership at the district office. They kind of just let me do my thing and we work together. They know we're going to collaborate, and so they understand we are doing our best to try to make things better at our building. So that is what I wanted to share with you guys today, and thank you guys for taking the time to watch this. My first live stream. I'm actually going to create a show notes for this for my podcast once I figure out how to do that. I've never done from YouTube to a podcast setting, so I'm gonna try to get that all figured out. I will have a lot of this information basically embedded in the show notes of my podcast. So if you haven't subscribed to my podcast, there's a time to do that. You can go to basically any podcasting app, just find educational leadership with Principal JL. JL stands for my name, but at the same time, I have a Facebook page if you wanted to follow on Facebook as well. Um, I also have a TikTok page, which I try to put out some, you know, some content that's more like inspirational at times, but also will promote my podcast as well there, and then of course my X page as well. I have that. Some people call it Twitter, call it X. I don't care what you call it, just another social media platform. So thank you guys for taking the time to listen to this podcast, and I will see you guys. And what we always like to say around our where we're at is to remember to always be 1% better. You guys have a great day and God bless.